Okay, this objective is objective 134C, which is students will be able to solve systems using elimination. Okay, and I also want you to get down that this is where no multiplication is required. I'll give you a second to get this down. Okay, so far we've solved systems using two different methods. We've used graphing, and that's where you graph them and you literally look and see where do the lines cross. Okay, so graphing is the first method. We've also now done substitution, where if we know what either x equals or what y equals, we can substitute it into the other equation and then solve it. Okay, this third method is called elimination. Okay, and this method, if you know when to use it, can actually save you a lot of time and increase your chances of getting it right. So it's a very awesome method, but you can only use it at certain times. Okay, let's go on to the next. Let me prove to you, and I do not want you guys writing this in your notes. Okay, so do not write this, but let me prove to you why this method can be helpful at certain times. So I'm going to solve a problem using substitution, or I should say I'm going to start to solve a problem using substitution. So if I have this system, 4x minus 2y is equal to 6, and then negative 4x plus 12y is equal to 4. Okay? When you look at this, we learned with substitution that if I have a coefficient that is a positive 1, it's pretty easy to solve for that variable. Okay? But as I look at my four coefficients, I have a 4, I have a negative 2, I have a negative 4, and a positive 12. Okay? None of these coefficients are a positive 1. So it gets kind of challenging to solve for one of the variables. For instance, in this first equation, okay, if I have 4x minus 2y is equal to 6, I'm just rewriting it. And again, you guys are not writing this down. If I want to solve for x, okay, first thing I would do is move this 2y to the other side. So plus 2y, and then rewrite 4x is equal to, I'm going to switch the order, 2y plus 6, and then I would have to divide by 4. Divide each of these terms by 4. Okay, so I'm left with x is equal to 1/2 y plus 3 over 2. Now, if I was solving this using substitution, I would have to substitute this x in. So this whole thing right here, I would have to substitute that in for x into this second equation. And I know you guys love working with fractions so much that you're like, yes, I want to do that. I want to plug it in. I want to distribute and multiply a bunch of fractions. But to save us time, let's think about another way of doing this one. So this problem is a good example of when you want to use elimination, when it's really tough to solve for one of the variables and substitute back in. Okay? And the more problems we do, we'll kind of show you when to use it, but I do want to make sure you guys understand that. And let's actually write that as a key point. Okay, so let's write a key point. That we are going to use elimination. Okay, when it is tough to solve for a variable. And substitute, I'm going to write that down here, and substitute back in. Okay. We use elimination when it is tough to solve for a variable and substitute back in. And we should also say we want to use it when no graph is given. No graph is given. Because if we have a graph given to us on a problem, if it says solve this system and there's a graph right there, chances are, not always, but chances are it's probably going to be easy to graph. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given you that graph right there. Okay, so now I'm going to teach you guys how to solve that same. Okay, in your notes, you have something that we wrote down as addition. So let me explain to you what addition is in terms of systems. So the addition is, and you guys can fill this in on your line in your notes, okay, when we add both equations together in order to cancel one of the variable terms. Okay, get that down. Okay, so let's go ahead and our first example problem. So example 1. Okay, the problem is 4x minus 2y is equal to 6, and negative 4x plus 12y is equal to 4. Okay. Now, you guys should have your calculators with you right now, so if you don't, hit pause and go grab your calculator, because to do integers, I want to make sure that you guys are checking your answers. Okay, so with addition, what we are saying is that if I add these two equations, okay, something very interesting is going to happen. So I'm going to show you how to do the work on these, where we're going to add both equations. Okay, so first of all, I want you to really big. Okay, so put that big addition symbol, and then we are going to add both of these equations. Now remember, when we are adding and subtracting terms, we can only add and subtract like terms. Okay, so what, and I want everyone doing this, even if you got integers down, I want you guys to use your calculator. Do 4, okay, you're going to do 4, this number 4 on your calculator, plus, because this is a plus sign, 4 plus negative 4. Okay. And if you do 4 plus negative 4, you're going to get 0. Okay? And that's what's in front of the x. Okay? Now on your calculators, and the key to this, you guys, is you have to pay attention to the signs. Okay? This is not 2, this is negative 2. So on your calculator, do negative 2 plus positive 12. And if you do negative 2 plus positive 12, you're going to get a positive 12, or a positive 10y. So a positive, I can write plus 10y. And now we have to add these constant terms over here too. That's why we did the line all the way over underneath. Okay. So if you do 6 plus 4, you better not be using your calculator on that. 6 plus 4, 10. Okay. Now if we look at this, okay, elimination. Think about elimination. It's called that for a reason. What did we actually do with these x terms? Well, when we added them, 0, so this 0 times whatever x is, any number, we don't know, but 0 times any number is 0, which means that it's eliminated. Okay. Once we eliminated it, now we just have the y's. So what I'm left with is 10y is equal to 10. Guess what? Can we solve for y and figure out what it is? Absolutely. Divide both sides by 10. Okay. And y is going to equal, 10 divided by 10 is 1. Okay. So far in my answer, okay, and we should actually always start with this, and you guys, you need to put, just draw the quick ordered pair. Don't forget to put the x and the y above the ordered pair. Because what happens a lot of time, you guys, is you'll get that first answer, and if you solve for y, you'll be like, oh, that's my first answer. I'm just going to plug it in and put it right here. Does this answer go there? No, you just solve for y, not x. And if you do this, it's just a quick reminder of which is which. Okay, so that's 1. Okay. Now, this gets back to the exact same thing that you guys did with substitution. Okay. Once you have your x or your y, you can plug it in to either equation and solve and figure out what the other one is. Okay. Now, if we look at these two equations up here, okay, I always like to think, well, which equation would make the most sense to plug it into? And to me, these are pretty similar, right? This first one has a minus 2y, but the second one has a negative 4x. Okay, so to me, I always like to pick the one that has the smallest numbers. I think it's always easier to work with smaller numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug on the next page, and I actually should erase this because we don't want it going into the x. I'm going to plug this y of 1 in for this y. And again, you can pick either equation. Okay, either equation, you're going to get the same thing. So I'm going to go on to the next page. You guys can just continue in your notes, but let's substitute in that 1 for y. So I had 4x minus 2, open parentheses, is equal to 6, and we said that y was 1. So now I'm going to simplify 4x. A negative times a positive is a negative, so minus 2 times 1 is 2. Is equal to 6. Solve this two-step equation. So I need to add 2, add 2. Bring down the 4x. That cancels. Equals 8. Divide by 4. Divide by 4. Cancels. X is equal to 2. Okay. So when you combine your x and your y, the x is 2, and the y was 1. Okay, so we just solved it. We have our ordered pair. We added those two equations, and in this case, the x is canceled, and then we just use the same thing where once we figure out what y is, plug it back in, solve for x. Okay, now, you should still, just like we taught you with graphing substitution, you should check your answers. So let's do check 1 and check 2. And again, in order to be a solution to a system, it has to make both equations true, both of them. So I'm going to rewrite the original, 4x minus 2y is equal to 6. And I'm just going to write my ordered pair right up here in the middle, so I think it was 2, 1. And then equation number 2 was negative 4x, okay, negative 4x plus 12y was equal to, what was that equal to? 4. Okay. So now I'm going to substitute in. Wherever I see x, I can substitute in. Wherever I see y, I can substitute in. Okay, and I'm just going to rewrite this. And again, whenever we substitute, we have to use parentheses. It's equal to 4. Okay, so my x was 2. My y was 1. X was 2. Y was 1. So this would be 8. This would be minus 2 equals 6. This would be negative 8. And again, if I'm going too fast, you can always pause it and do this on your own, then check your work. This right here would be a positive 12. Okay. Now simplify this. 8 minus 2 is 6. Okay, did this first equation balance out? Absolutely, yes it did. Okay. And then this one, negative 8 plus 12, will get me a positive 4. Does that equal, and bring that down, are those equal? Yes, it is. Okay. Now, I want you guys to really make sure you understand what this means. What this means is that this ordered pair is in fact on both of these lines. So line 1 and line 2, this ordered pair is on both of them. So chances are this is the exact point where the lines intersect. Okay? The only kind of exception would be if there's infinite solutions, meaning the lines are on top of each other. Okay? Let me show you a problem. Use subtraction. Okay? So subtraction is really the same thing. You guys can write it. You know, for addition, we said it's where you add both equations together in order for the one variable terms to cancel. Okay, subtraction is just the opposite, right? Instead of adding, we're subtracting both equations together. So hit pause and write that in for subtraction in your notes. Okay, by now you should have written what subtraction is. We will be expecting when you get to class, that is filled in. Okay, so example 2, okay, is the problem. 2x minus 3y is equal to 11. Okay, and then it was 5x minus 3y is equal to 14. Okay, so if we look at these, if we look at the coefficients on x, it's a 2 and a 5. So if we add or subtract those, are those going to cancel to be 0? The answer is clearly no. Okay, but if we look at the y's, they both have a negative 3 in front of them. Okay, now one of the most common mistakes in this objective is for students to not know whether to add or subtract. Okay, so we know we're going to do one of them. And again, we should be starting to see, if we ever see where they have the same coefficients, elimination is going to be your best method to use. Okay, even if they have different signs, we can still use elimination. Alright, so I want you guys on your calculator to right now do negative 3, okay, and don't write this in your notes yet. I'm just going to do negative 3 plus, let's pretend like we need to add these two equations. So negative 3 plus negative 3. Okay. When you do that, do they cancel to be 0? And the answer is no, they don't cancel to be 0. So can we use addition to eliminate variables here? And the answer is no. Well, let's try subtraction. So on your calculator, do negative 3, and I'm actually going to write this. This is exactly what you should plug in. Okay, you should do negative 3 minus, because again, this minus right here, minus negative 3. Okay. Now, if you're doing that by hand, you know a minus a negative is going to turn into a plus positive. So when you subtract them, they are, in fact, going to cancel out. Let me tell you guys another common mistake right here. Here's what I see all the time. Negative 3, and then I'm going to be a student. Minus, oh, it's already a minus, so I don't really need to write that negative 3 again. So negative 3 minus, I don't really need to write that negative again because I already have subtraction. Okay. No, you can't just forget that this is a negative and say, I don't need to put that. Okay. So that's why write the minus and then use parentheses. Okay. That's the wrong way of doing it. Okay. So what we just discovered is that if we subtract, and the y's are going to cancel. So now we have to subtract everything else. So on your calculator, do 2 minus 5. Okay, and you should get negative 3, and that's your x. Negative 3 minus negative 3, we already said, is going to be 0y. Okay, let's just show it for now. Let's just show minus 0y. And then 11 minus 14 will give you negative 3. Okay, do I need to show this minus 0y? The answer is no, because 0 times any number is going to get you what? Well, it's going to get you 0 or just cancel. Okay, so what's left once that cancels? Well, what's left is negative 3x is equal to negative 3. Okay, now solve for x. So when we solve for x, divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. Okay, and when we do that, we get x is equal to, that cancels, negative divided by negative, okay, will get me a positive. 3 divided by 3 will get me 1. So x is equal to 1. Okay, now we're not done, because remember, when we're solving, our answer needs to be in ordered pair. Okay, so x equals negative 1, and plug it into either equation. I'm just going to pick the first equation. So 2, I'm just going to write out 2x minus 3y is equal to 11. And then we said that x is 1. So minus 3y is equal to 11. So 2 times 1, 2 minus 3y is equal to 11. Now we just have a two-step equation. Okay, on both sides we can subtract 2, negative 3y is equal to 9. Okay, to solve for y, we need to divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. So y is equal to, positive divided by negative, negative. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Okay, So y equals negative 3. So now my ordered pair is, let's see, my x was 1, and I just found that my y is negative 3. Okay? So that's my ordered pair. Now, again, you can check your answers to make sure you get them right, especially if you finish the test and have extra time. Okay, and let's go ahead and do that. So negative 3. So I need to do check 1. I need to do check 2. And my ordered pair was 1, negative 3. And again, in order for this to prove that this answer is a solution to this system, we have to prove that it's a point on both lines. So 2x minus 3y is equal to 11. And then I had 5x minus 3y is equal to 14. Okay, so rewrite parentheses minus parentheses equals 11. And you guys got to work at getting quick on this. That way when you take tests, you don't run out of time. So again, whenever we're doing this, write quickly for these simple things. Plug in your x. X is 1. Plug in your y. Negative 3. Plug in your x. Plug in your y. Okay, now we got to simplify. This times this is 2. A negative times a negative is a positive 9. Okay, 2 plus 9 is 11. Does that check out? Yes, we just proved this point is on that line. So if we graphed this equation, okay, this point would be on the line. So this one, 5 negative times a negative is a positive, so 9 is equal to 14. So this equals 14. Okay, we just proved this point is on this line as well. So we just proved that our one ordered pair balances out both equations, which means that ordered pair is in fact an answer to the system. Okay, let's go over a few more examples. There are always some tricky ones because remember, a solution to a system can be an ordered pair, which we've had our last two answers were ordered pairs, or it can be infinite solutions, okay, or it can be no solution at all. Okay, so sometimes when we're using elimination, we will encounter something that gets a little, it just looks funky. So right away we should be thinking, okay, something's up with this. Maybe it's not an ordered pair. Maybe the answer is either no solution or infinite solutions. Okay, so let's do this one together. My question is, would you add or would you subtract these two equations? Okay. Well, if you add them, and the one thing that we should do is put in these hidden ones. Okay. If you add them, and then this one, you guys could try to cancel either the x's or the y's, because the x's have the same coefficients, right? And the y's have the same coefficients. You guys don't need to circle those. So when they have the same coefficients, you can choose which one you want to try to cancel. Okay, so if I add them, 1 plus 1 doesn't cancel, right? It gives me 2x. If I add my y's, 1 plus 1 will give me 2y, so that doesn't cancel. So clearly I need to subtract these two equations. So 1x minus 1x will give me 0x. 1y minus 1y will give me 0y. And then 70 minus 24 will give me, well, that 70 minus 20 is 50, minus 4 is 46. Okay, so what's 0 times x? Well, it's going to be 0. What's 0 times y? Again, we don't know what y is, but 0 times any number is just 0. Okay, is equal to 46. So 0 plus 0 is 0. Does 0 equal 46? And the answer is obviously no. Okay, so what we need to do with this, and you should have more room in your notes, okay, if this is false, if this is a false statement, okay, then the answer is no solution. Okay, if you get where everything kind of cancels out and it looks really, really funky, and you get some number doesn't equal some other number, okay, it's false. This is not a true statement. okay, then the answer is no solution. So you could technically get something that cancels out. Most of the time it'll be 0, but you could have like 0 equals -3. Is that true? No, that's not true. So when it's false, the answer is no solution. Okay, let's look at practice number 1 in your, or practice number 2. Okay, let's look at practice problem number 2. First of all, we want to look and see, what are we going to try to cancel? The x's or the y's? And to answer that question, again, we just look at, well, what coefficients are the same, or the same number? They don't have to be the same sign in this case, but just the same number. Okay, and the answer is clearly the x's have the same number without looking at the sign. So we're going to try to cancel those. So then we ask ourselves, well, how are we going to cancel them? Are we going to add, or are we going to subtract the two equations to get them to cancel? Okay, well, let's think about this. If we subtract them, okay, and don't write this down yet. If we subtract them, if we do on our calculator 3 minus -3, so it would look like this. Do this on your calculator. 3 minus -3, okay? And you're going to find, if you're not using your calculator, it turns into plus positive, you're going to find that's 6. Did that eliminate like we wanted it to? And the answer is no, so that's not it. So instead of subtracting, we know that we have to add these two equations, okay? So I'll let you guys go ahead and finish this. Make sure this is finished by the time you get to class. I just want to help you decide on whether to add or to subtract these equations. Okay, let's go on to... Okay, let's look at practice 3. Do we want to cancel our x coefficients or our y coefficients? Well, the x's have the same number essentially, so we could cancel those, but then so do the y's. Okay, so on this one, we could actually cancel either one, the x's or the y's. Let's just say we're going to cancel the x's because they come first, so let's just cancel those. So the question becomes, how do I cancel the x's? I have -3 and -3. Okay, what operation do I need to do in between these, add or subtract, to get them to cancel? Okay, well, if I add them, -3 plus -3 would give me -6. So I don't want to add them. That's not going to cancel, so I know I need to subtract them. And then if I have minus a negative, okay, turns into plus positive. -3 plus +3 will give me the 0. Okay, so that tells me I need to subtract these equations. Okay, -3 minus -3 will give me 0x. -4 minus -4 will give me 0y. Okay, and we can add those. And then -1 minus -1 will give me 0. Okay, any 0 times any number. Again, we don't know what x is, but 0 times any number will give me 0. Plus 0 times y, or 0 times any number, will give me 0. And that equals 0. Okay, 0 plus 0 is 0. Okay, so right away you should have seen, a minute ago, this was starting to be kind of a funky looking thing where things cancel out and everything's equal in 0. Okay, is this a true statement? And the answer is yes. 0 does equal 0. It's true. Okay, when it's true with systems of equations, we know that the answer then is going to be, okay, infinite solutions. Infinite solutions. Okay, so that is the answer. On the one, I think it was 2 problems ago, we got where a 0 equaled number, and that was false, right? So the answer to that was no solutions. Well, with systems of equations, again, if it balances out, if it's true, the answer is infinite solutions. Okay, and I also want you guys to come up here and look at this. Okay, these are the exact same equations. Okay, is the exact same equations. So if we were to graph these, we would have to convert them to slope-intercept form. They would be the exact same line, right on top of each other. Okay, and we know that lines are right on top of each other have infinite solutions. Okay, let's look at one more practice problem. Let's get this set up. Okay, practice number 4. All right, we look at this and we first want to see, can elimination work well here? Okay, and again, we'll keep practicing when we can use elimination. But basically, we're looking for do the coefficients of the x's or the y's have the same number? And they can be different signs, but they just have to be the same number. Okay, so let's look at the x's. They both have a 6, right? So are those going to be easy to eliminate? And the answer is yes, they're the same. Okay, so we know that elimination now will be a good strategy to use. So now we ask yourself, well, how do I eliminate or cancel those x's? So I have a 6 and a 6. What operation should I do in between them, addition or subtraction, in order to get them to cancel? Well, clearly, I know that 6 minus 6 will give me the 0. So I'm going to subtract these. Okay, so 6 minus 6, 0x. 5 minus negative 7. Please make sure, I'm going to show you guys the most common mistake again. Okay, 5 minus, and then since you'll say, oh, negative 7, I already have that minus there. Okay, you can't just drop the minus or the negative. You have to keep it. So it's 5 minus negative 7 on your calculator. Let me rewrite that. Okay, that's how you should plug it in on your calculator. And you can also use parentheses to plug that negative 7 in. Okay? And when you do that, that will turn into plus positive, so that would equal 12. So it would be, it's a positive, so plus 12y is equal to, and then we have 4 minus negative 20. Turns into plus positive, so that would be 24. So that would equal 24. Okay. You guys can solve it from here. I just want to help you guys get started and set up whether you add or subtract the equations. Before you come to class, make sure that you finish the rest of the practice problems and the notes. I think just the 1 through 6, I believe, is what they are. So just finish practice problems 1 through 6 in the notes. And then we'll come to class and practice. And if you have a lot of questions, make sure you write them down. Come to class ready with your questions.